Hi there and welcome to another PSD Tuts spoon-fed Photoshop tutorial. I'm Gavin Steele and I'm going to be taking you through the screencast of Ben's brilliant creating an ice cold poster with 3D text. So this is the final image that we're going to be aiming for. All of the links can be found in the tutorial, the link to all the different textures that we're going to be using, clouds, bridge, some ice cubes, some ice, or broken glass, the fonts that we're going to use. Don't forget to check out all of the other videos over at psdtuts.com in the video section. There's quite a few on there. Leave some comments and I'll try and get back to you. Okay, so this is what we're going to be aiming for today. So I'm going to load up a Photoshop page. I've got one here. I've also got the version that I created. Now if I just minimize that new document, move that to the side, you can see there's a slight difference between the 3D text that Ben creates and the text that I create. Now the reason for that difference is because I've used Illustrator to create mine. I'm on a Mac and I haven't got the software Zara that Ben uses in his tutorial. Okay, but if you're on a PC you can go and download that. I think it's about $40 or something like that. So I don't know what the exchange rate is at the minute, but it's not too much for a 3D text package. And again, I'm going to take you through how I did it in Illustrator so you get a very similar effect. Okay, so let's go back to that. Just going to move that back in. You can see the image is made up of this nice text, some background text on that surface, some clouds coming in over the ice, little area down the bottom left to put the dates and all our information for the poster, and that's basically it. So we're going to get started. I'm just going to minimize that. I'm going to load up a blank document. That's 600 pixels by 848 pixels. Okay, so just head over to File, New, and create that document. Okay, I've called mine Nice Poster. You can call it whatever you like. Okay, the first texture that we need to use, just want to expand this area here. Okay, the first texture we need to use is the wooden background or the wooden panels. So using my Move tool, I'm just going to drag that straight onto my canvas, like so. Now we want the panels to be fairly big going across the middle, so I'm just going to Command T and I'm just going to hold down Shift just to expand them a little bit more, move them into place. I think we can just do it a little bit more. Okay, I'm happy with that, and then hit enter. Now we're going to duplicate that layer, so I can just drag it straight down onto the new layer, and then I'm going to Command T, I'm going to right click or control click, and I'm going to go to flip vertically. Once I've flipped it, I'm then just going to move it below our other one, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to hit enter. Now don't worry about this area here too much, we're going to get rid of that now, and the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use a nice soft brush and we're just going to delete away that area. Okay, so once you've duplicated it, we're going to blend these two layers, grab the erase tool, change your brush settings to a nice big soft brush, and then on whichever layer you want to take away from, I'm going to take away from this top layer, actually this bottom layer because that's where the overlap is, and ooh, a little bit too much there. Decrease the size of my brush. I'm just going to start to stroke away this area along here, like so. Okay, now I'm using a little bamboo tablet I'm just trying out, and already you can see that's worked quite well, and it's quite hard to see any join at all. We do get a few mirrored aspects here, or artifacts. Don't worry about that, because we're going to change the colour of this and blend it into the background. It's not going to matter too much, but I'm pretty happy with that. You can't really tell there's a join there. It looks like there's a bit of a stain in the wood. Again, we can just play around with that until you get something that you're happy with. Once you've done that, we're going to merge those two layers together. So I'm just selecting both of them, holding Shift, then going to press Command E, and that's going to merge those two layers together. Okay, the next thing to do is to change the colour of our background. So we're going to darken the texture. Okay, so we need to desaturate it. So we can do this using the hue and saturation adjustment layer. So go up to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue and Saturation. Click on OK. And let's bring that up to the top so we can see what effect we have on this. And we're going to set our saturation to -100. Now you can see it's turned a nice grey. So click on OK. We're then going to go to our brightness and contrast adjustment layer. So again we go Layer, New Adjustment Layer. We're going to go to brightness and contrast, and then we're just going to set the brightness to -111, and the contrast we're going to set to a +36, and click on OK. And there we have it. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. That's about right, and you can see it's darkened that nicely. Okay, the next step is we're going to put our text on here. We're going to put our ice, 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 nice big letters going down the middle. Now the text that he uses, the font, sorry, that he uses in the tutorial is Century Gothic Bold. You should have that already set up in your font list. Let's have a look. Here we go, Century Gothic. Make sure you set that to bold up here at the top. And we're just going to type in some nice big chunky letters. We're going to type ice, ice, ice. So I'm just going to type it once in capital letters. Let's just make that a bit bigger. Going to set that really big. Something like that. A little bit bigger still. Let's have a look. Okay, still needs to be a little bit bigger, so just double click on the T there, increase the size. I'm going to change the colour to be white, and we can just keep going with the size of this a little bit more. Okay, we just want the I and the E to both be over the edge, so see we're still a little bit short there. So again, nice and big. Let's try that. Okay, that looks about right. Okay, once you've done that, we're now going to play around with the edge, the stroke. We're going to change the colour, give it an outer glow that's going to carry the colour scheme through the actual design, and that's that pale blue or that like watery effect blue throughout. So if you double click on that layer, I'm just going to bring that over here, and what you need to do is we're going to give it an outer glow. We're going to set that outer glow to be a blue colour, so change our colour, choose a blue. Okay, that looks okay. Okay, and I'm just going to play around with the size and the spread. Okay, so I'm going to set my spread to about 22 and set the size to 19. Yeah, that looks okay. And then I'm going to click on OK. And then I'm just going to bring down the opacity of the layer to about 13%. There we go, that looks good. Okay, it doesn't quite look centered, so again with the move tool, I'm just going to nudge it just to the right, okay? So make sure you got the move tool selected. For some reason that's not letting me, oh, there we go. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And then I'm just going to duplicate that layer 2 more times, and again, just going to move that down. Like so. And I can see straight away the text is actually, it's too big. So what we need to do is we need to play around with it. So if we double click back on it, we can reduce the size down to about, let's say 360. and then we're going to play around with the actual character itself. So I'm going to bring that over. So we need to just push them apart a little bit, like so, and everything else looks alright. That looks fine. Let's see if we're going to be able to get 3 with that. I'm just going to move this out of the way. So hold down Alt. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so I'm going to delete these previous layers. Turn them off first just to make sure I get the right ones. There we go. So all the ones that have been turned off, I'm going to stick them into the trash can there. Okay, we've got our ice background. It looks pretty good. You might want to give yourself a little bit of space between each one. Just going to nudge that down just a little bit. And that's our background and our text done. Nice, quick, easy effect. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to add that bluey, misty colour that's going to go across the middle of our poster. It's also going to provide us with a horizon that the eye is going to be drawn to. So when we add our ice, your eye is going to be drawn as if the ice is floating somewhere around here, and all of this is the skyline or the wall or whatever. So we're going to grab a nice big soft brush. There we go. Increase that and bring the hardness right down. Okay, turn that off. Going to create a new layer above all these other layers, and we're going to paste this bluey colour over here. So we're going to change the colour, set your colour to 3-4 D1 F8 and then hit OK, and then we're going to paint across this middle area here. So I'm just going to start off lightly. I'm just going to change my brush settings quickly because I'm using this tablet. It thinks I want pen pressure. I'm just going to turn that off. There we go. Okay. So it's a nice big brush. So something like that. And then we're going to set this right down to 38%. Let's have a look at that. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we're kind of setting it up that this is going to be the horizontal line, and our ice is going to look like it's coming from the front here, going back towards that mist. I might just reduce that opacity down just a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so once you've done that, the next thing we need to do is get pictures of our clouds that stretch across the middle here. So I've already got those on my desktop down here. I'm just going to drag them straight into Photoshop. Okay, go back to our working document, and again I'm just going to use the move tool and I'm going to drag that straight onto my canvas. Command T to scale it. Now you can use the top part up here to change the width down to say 50%. Oop, not 500. Okay. And we're looking to find a bit of cloud that we want to use to go across the middle. So I'm looking at this little flick here, and in fact I'm just going to flip that horizontally. Going to have that coming across, something like that. Okay, that's good. I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so once you've got the cloud layer on there, the next thing we need to do is desaturate it. Okay, so again we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, we're going to go to Desaturate. Once you've desaturated it, we're going to set the layer to Hard Light. So head over here, we're going to choose Hard Light, our Layers panel. Okay, And then using hard light, we're going to set our opacity down to 50%, like so. And then we're going to use a mask. We're going to cut off the parts that we don't want. So head over to Layer, Layer Mask, and Hide All. And then using our brush tool, we're going to use a soft white brush, and we're going to bring back the area. So we're on 141. I think that should be set to 0 hardness, and it is. And we're just going to bring back the areas of the cloud that we want to see just coming through. And because we're using that mask, let's just zoom in a little bit. Because we're using that mask, only the areas that we want start shining through, which is really nice. Like so, we get a nice wispy effect going across there. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to create some of the little highlights, little lights coming through the cloud. And again, I've already downloaded the image. It's this image of the bridge. And again, just going to stick that using the move tool straight onto my canvas. Going to resize it to maybe 20%. Okay, it's a little bit too small, so let's increase that to 60. And that's it. And make sure you put this layer underneath the clouds layer. And then once you've done that, we're going to apply Gaussian blur to this image. So make sure you've got our bridge layer selected, and we're going to head up to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. Set your Gaussian blur to about 4.3 pixels and click on OK, and we get these nice little blue lines here, these little blue dots that we're going to have shine through our cloud layer. So I'm just going to move that layer up a little bit just to make sure we've got going through like so. Okay, we're going to go back up and add some more hue and saturation in there. We're going to make it a little bit bluer. So go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. We're going to just make it a little bit bluer. So find blue on this line. Just going to increase the saturation a little bit. Okay. Okay, and again, we're going to apply a mask. So go to Layer, Layer Mask, Hide All, and we're just going to bring back, using soft brush, we're just going to bring back the parts that we want to show. So just like that. Okay, I'm actually just going to transform that so these lines here are a little bit straighter. So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm just going to rotate it just a little bit. Like so. I'm going to grab the black brush. I'm just going to hide some of these areas that I don't want to show through. And again, just transform it. I'm just trying to line these up. Going to increase the size of it. That's about right, 130 now. And just move that up. Like so, and then hit enter. So once you've got those in place, and they're just showing through the bottom of the cloud, okay, we're going to make sure we've got all of these set. We're going to set this layer to screen. There we go. And then we're going to set the screen layer to about 50%. So they're really faintly just showing through as highlights. And again, each step you can go back and just move them into place, so they're like nice little reflections or something that's going on off in the distance. Okay, once we've done that, we need to actually get our ice layer straight on there. So I'm going to go and grab those ice cubes. Again, all of the links for these files which are all free by the way, can be found on the tutorial. This is a great stock photo of some ice. And again, using the move tool that I've got selected here, we're just going to drag the ice straight on. Hit Command T, we're going to transform it. This time I'm just going to hold down Shift until I get them into place. Fortunately, the layers come in underneath my cloud layer, so I can get a general idea of how big they need to be, where they're going to go. Okay, that looks pretty good out there. Hit enter. Right, so again we need to change the colour of this layer. So we're going to use hue and saturation again to give them a more blue colour. So head over to Image, Adjustment, Hue and Saturation, and we're going to play around with that. So we're going to set the saturation to be about 32. We're going to set the colour to be, the hue to be, 191. And let's just see if we can just adjust that slightly, not 191. Okay, I've got a minus. Let's try minus. No, it's still purple. Just want to try and find a nice blue colour, like just a light. There we go. So I've got that set to minus 118. Let's see if I play around with the lightness. That's perfect. Click on OK. Alright, we're going to set this layer to be screen, and hopefully we've got rid of that box layer around it. Now I think they're a little bit low, so again using the move tool I'm just going to nudge it up just a little bit, like so. I just want them to be poking into the clouds, so it's going to look like that cloud layer is coming over the top. Okay, move it to the top, and that is our ice added, nice and easy. It's a really nice way using screen to get rid of that black box that surrounds the image, and when you're dealing with really good stock like this, where it's got a solid black background, it's really easy to do. So I'm just going to close that down now. Right, the next part is to add our ice centerpiece that's going to go in the middle, and that's going to be using not Photoshop, we're going to be using Illustrator to create that. So what you need to do is you need to load up Illustrator. Right, well I've loaded up Illustrator and I've got some examples of some text in here, and this is the text that we're going to be creating over to the right. Now I had some issues when I was creating the text, and I'm going to go through some of those with you now, and they're all to do with the perspective of the letter. Now if we have a quick look at the original tutorial, you can see that we can see inside of the sea, the roof of the sea, but we can't see any of the side, we can't see any of the bottom of the sea, and I was actually struggling to come up with a solution. So I headed into Illustrator and I just played around in Illustrator. So what you need to do is, I'm going to be using these for the tutorial. I'm just going to show you how I created each of the letters. Now head over to the text tool, click anywhere on your canvas, change the font to what we were using earlier, which was, if I can remember, oh, not too far, Century Gothic, and we're going to type in I, and you're going to do one letter at a time. Okay, in fact if we just go back, select that, it's a little bit small. Okay, so I've got that set to 72, that should be enough to show you. I'm going to change the colour to white, we can't see it now, and I'm going to go to Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. Now the most important thing about using Extrude and Bevel, it probably sounds pretty obvious, is to make sure that you click on Preview. The number of times that I've changed stuff and I'm like, why isn't it changing, or I've done it, clicked on OK, and it looks totally different to how I want it to look, it's because I haven't clicked on Preview. So make sure you've got Preview set. Now for the letter I, we're going to set this top bit here, okay, which is the rotation around the x-axis. We're going to set that to 0. The next one we're going to set to our y-axis to 3, and then down here we're going to set this one to 0, okay, the z-axis to 0. Now in our perspective we're going to set that to 86, and then our extrude depth we're going to set to 50, and we're going to change this to plastic shading's fine. We're going to go to more options, change it from black to custom, and then we're going to change this color to a really light blue. So something like, I've gone for B2 F4 F4. Let's just double check that. B2 F4 FF. Let's try it again. B2 F4 FF. Okay, that should be a nice blue colour, but it hasn't come up. So we'll go with B6 and then quadruple F, FF. Click on OK, and then click on OK. Now at the minute it doesn't look much, okay, but what we're actually looking for is this pale blue bit here that goes on the inside. And if I show you on the original, we're just trying to create the 3D bit for this pale blue bit on the inside. To create the front, the face of our letter, the face of our font, I haven't done any 3D work. I've literally just typed in the font, I've made it white, and I've given it a stroke. So again, I can give this a stroke like so, and it just stands out a little bit more. So I didn't really have trouble with the I had trouble with this letter C. Okay, but you can see I pretty much got it there. So to do the C, again, just grab our font tool. We're going to type in C. Let's move it down a bit. We're going to go back to Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. Make sure you've got Preview set. And to do the letter C, we just did 1 degrees in the first, 1 degrees in the second box, and then finally 0. And then the perspective we set to 66, and the extrude depth was set to 130. And again, we change that background color to a custom color. Again, just move it up to pale blue. Click on OK, and then click on OK. Head up here, we're going to change that to white. We're going to give it a stroke, like so. And you can see we've only got that top bit in here, nothing on the bottom, and nothing going over here, which is what I was struggling with. You might have not have struggled with it, but it took me a while to finally get the dimensions and the perspective correct. And then for the letter E, again, very similar way. Type my letter E. Oh, let's just change that. Okay, type my letter E. Go to Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel, Preview, and then this time we just set it to 1, -2, 0, change your perspective to 55, and then set your depth to 125. Click on OK. Change the color of the font to white, give it a grey stroke. And one thing I didn't do there, let's give you a chance to show you this, is I didn't set that background color. Don't make the mistake of going back up to Effect and 3D and Extrude and Bevel. It'll apply another 3D effect to what we've got here, and it'll just totally mess up everything. So over on the right hand side, there's this thing called your Appearance panel. Just double click on the effect, 3D Extrude and Bevel in there, and it'll bring up the settings that you already had. I'm going to go back custom, change that to the light blue that we found, something like that, and click on OK. So that is basically how I created these letters over here. The only difference is that I changed the size of it, the size of the particular letter. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to drag this top set here. I'm going to press Command C, or I'm just going to copy it, go back into Photoshop, and then Command V, I'm just going to paste it straight in as a smart object. Once that pastes in, I'm going to hold down Shift and just scale it up until I get it to a size that I'm happy with, a little bit bigger. I'm just going to nudge that to the right. Okay. And then I'm going to hit enter. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in, I'm going to grab each of these letters individually, the ones that aren't 3D, and paste them over the lower layer. So again, just inside Photoshop, we're going to hold down Command V and we're just going to paste them in as smart objects. Just going to wait for that to load a second. Quickly grab a drink. Okay, obviously the more RAM and the better computer you've got, the easier it's going to be to flick between Illustrator and Photoshop. So I'm just going to minimize that down. Go back to Photoshop, paste it in as a smart object. There's our eye. I'm just going to quickly just scale that up like so. Just going to move in and make sure. Okay, so that's fine. Again, back to Illustrator, grab the C, copy that, paste that in. Now the reason I'm doing it this way is because I want to apply the stock image of the ice or the shattered glass over this top layer, not over the bottom layer. Finally, grab that in. I'll show you what I'm talking about in just 1 second. So, smart object, scale that up. Get rid of my character for now. Let's see how we've got with that. Okay, that looks pretty good too. So I'm just going to hit enter on there. Right, I'm just going to close some of these windows down. They're stealing lots of my memory. And I'm going to quit Illustrator like so. Okay, so once you've got your 3D text, and if you created it in Zara 3D, from what I hear, it's pretty easy just to save that as a JPEG or save that as a file and import it straight into Photoshop. But obviously I haven't got that software, so I've used Illustrator, and you can see it's fairly quick and easy to create 3D text and stick it in there. Once you've got your text in place, the next thing we need to do is put our texture over the top of it. So I'm just going to quickly grab that texture of broken glass. So head back to the tutorial. I've got it over here. There it is. I'm going to click on that. Okay, hopefully that will have downloaded. No, let's try that again. There we go. And it's loaded up for me. Brilliant. Okay, so just going to be using the move tool again. I'm going to click on this layer and just drag it straight over. Because it's on top of all of our text, what I need to do is I'm just going to close that off. With our top layers, these top three, now that they're in place, I can merge them together. So I'm just going to use Command E after Shift selecting them. We're going to go back to, oh, I've got rid of that layer by mistake. Didn't want to include that top layer, so these three can be merged. Turn on this layer again, and then holding down Command Alt and E, or G, sorry, Command Alt G, I've basically mapped that layer to this top layer. And you can see what I mean, how it hasn't applied it to the layers below. I've still got that icy blue colour underneath. And again, another way of doing that was I could have held down Alt and moved in between the layers and clicked, and it would have done the same thing. Okay, but a nice keyboard shortcut is Command Alt G, and that will map that top layer to the surface of the layer below. So I'm just going to zoom out now just so we can get this looking good. And I'm going to play around with this ice layer. So I'm going to transform it again. I'm going to shrink it down, just going to move it over till we get some nice bits of ice. And then I'm going to hit enter. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to lighten that up. So we're going to create a new layer, and then using a nice soft brush again, what we're going to do is we're going to brush over this text. Okay, so select white, nice big brush tool, and then using the white we're just going to stroke over our ice so it only just shows through. We're going to set that layer to 85% as well, so I'll do that now. Okay. Okay, just want it to touch the letters. Shrink it down so we can get inside here, and again hold down Command Alt G, it'll map it to that layer. Okay, again that's looking pretty good. Some of the ice is showing through over here. You might just want to just take it down just a little bit more. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that, it looks pretty good. Now again you go through the same process to create the next set of ice, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick them into a folder like so. I'm going to call that folder let me. I'm going to call that ice text, hit enter, and then I'm just going to duplicate that folder, and then I'm going to Command T, I'm going to flip it vertically, and I'm just going to move it down below our layer like so. I'm just going to nudge that down just a bit, give ourselves some space, and then hit enter. Now obviously you can see the E's not quite right, so again you can go back into Illustrator or into Zara, play around with the E so that all the perspective's correct, and again you can get a much better effect. But just for time in this tutorial I just really wanted to copy that and put it below. The I's work, the C's work, the only one that hasn't worked is the E, and you've got this big block at the top rather than the small block and then the big block, but it doesn't look too bad at all. Okay, so once you've got your text in place, now we're just going to start playing around with the rest of the font on our tutorial. So above that layer we're going to add a new text layer, and we're going to set this to the font that's on the tutorial, which is, if I can find it, there it is, Birdman. Okay, it's a free font to download. Set that to white, and we're just going to type in baby. In fact, if I just come out of that, I've actually typed that into my ice layers. So I'm going to grab those three, I'm going to merge those, and then I'm going to lock them, and for now I'm just going to hide them. I'm going to head back up to the top of this stack, grab the font tool, and now I can type on an own layer. Brilliant. Going to bring that right down, it's a little bit big. I'm going to move that over like so, and again and apply that same font that I just tried to apply earlier, the Birdman font. There we go, and just bring it down like so. Now I'm just going to bring the letters together a bit so they're just touching like that, and I'm going to move that over like so. And I want the Y to line up with the edge of the E and the B to line up with the edge of the I. So again I'm just going to play around, just reducing the size of the font. We want it to overlap just a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. Once you've got that in place, we're going to head over to our blending options. So double click on your layer, and we're going to add a few things to make that stand out a little bit better. So what you need to do is just add a blue outer glow, change the color, find a nice blue, that should do fine. click on OK. And then what I'm going to do is, again, I'm just going to play around with the size and so on. So just going to increase the size just a little bit. 10 might be a bit much. Let's change that to 8. That looks better. Okay, we're going to set that to normal, and that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to click on OK. Before I do, I just want to have a look at the outer glow color I'm using here and the rest of the colors that surround it, and that might be a little bit too heavy. Okay, click on OK. So all the time I'm looking at all the colors surrounding the lettering before I select my color. I'm just going to zoom in to 100% there, and you can see that looks a lot better. Okay, once we've done that, between the ice text and the actual ice cubes, we're going to create another layer. So just in here, we're going to create a new layer, and now we're going to put in our DJ's name. So our DJ name is DJ Spoonfed. So again, head over to the text tool. This time we're going to change it back to the original font that we were using before, so Century Gothic, and this can be a lot smaller, and it's going to go right here, and we're just going to write in capitals DJ Spoonfed, and I'm just going to bring that down like so. And I'm realizing that I'm running out a little bit of space in between, so if I grab everything above, hold down Shift, and just nudge that all up a little bit, it's going to give me a bit more room to play around with. Go back to my DJ, there we go, and again reduce the size right down. Like so. Okay, once you've got that layer on there, we're just going to apply a gradient overlay. So double click, let's bring that up. We're going to go to gradient overlay, we're going to set it to radial, we're going to just change it here, and we're going to use black to white. So select this third one in, click on OK, and again you can see it's starting to take shape. The opacity, just going to bring the opacity down, just play around with the angle. So 180 is not bad, okay. Opacity right down to say 30, click on OK. And just adds a little bit to that particular bit of text. So make sure that's on about 30% opacity. Once you've got your DJ on there, the next thing that we need to consider is a little bit of text down at the bottom left. So what we need to do is create a new layer on the very top of the whole stack. We're going to grab our rectangular marquee tool, and we're going to draw out the area that we want to put this in. Now I've already got my fixed size set. I'm just going to set that back to normal so I can select, there we go, this area down here, and that looks about right. So once we've done that, we're going to make this rectangular selection, and then we're going to apply the image. So what it will do is it will take everything that we've already created, especially for this background bit, and apply it inside this selection. So we go to Image, and we go to Apply, let's cancel that, Image, and Apply Image. It's going to ask us what we want to do. We want to use the source's ice poster, just click on OK. And you can see it's created this layer at the top, which is everything that's been done beneath it has been applied to that layer. If we didn't make this selection, we would make a whole layer as if we'd merged all these layers together on top of everything. So once you've made and applied the image, okay, the next thing we need to do is go to Filter, Blur, and apply a Gaussian blur, and again about 4.3. Click on OK. It just blurs that area inside the selection. Next thing that we need to do is create a new layer, keeping that selection down at the bottom, and we're going to fill this with white, and like so. Take caps lock off, fill that area with white, and we're going to change the opacity right down to about 5%, something like that. Okay, so it just adds a little bit of blur, which actually draws your eye to that area. Once you've done that, we're going to add some blending options to that layer. We're going to give it a little bit of a drop shadow. So select drop shadow, and we're going to set this to change the opacity to 100%. And leave everything else the same. Multiply black, that's fine. Distance 5, spread 0, size 5, that's all fine. And I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to create a new layer with the same selection still kept there. And obviously you can be naming these layers as you go along, but just for speed, I'm just going to rush through them. So we've created a new layer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use a very soft brush, and let's grab that. OK. And then we're going to use a pale blue colour. So we're going to set this to 6,4, B1, D1. Click on OK. And we're just going to click once in this bottom left hand corner to try and get a gradient going from the left to right. So I'm going to increase the size of my brush. I'm just going to click once. Okay. And you can see that we get a nice fade from left going down to right inside that box. Once you've done that, we're going to bring that opacity down to about 40%. Okay, that looks okay. And then we can start writing our text in that area. So again, head over to the text tool, I'm going to set this to white. I can deselect it now and just zoom in just a little bit. And I'm going to apply my text. So first layer, again, let's reduce that right down. And we're going to type all in capitals, Thursday. I'm just going to change my font back to, what did we use before? I keep forgetting. To Century Gothic. And I'm going to try and position that somewhere, just nudge it around. Somewhere in the middle. Grab my text tool again. I'm going to write 27th. Okay, I'm going to take off the bold. And I'm going to write November. Grab that. Let's just move that over. Grab a text tool again. And we're going to do @psdtits. So I'm just going to shrink that down a bit and do @ and then bring it right up. Maybe not quite so big. Okay, I'm going to move that into place. And then finally just add free entrance. And we're going to make that bold. Okay, so let's zoom out, see how that looks. Okay, it doesn't look too bad, it's a little bit over to the right, so I'm just going to grab those layers like so, and just nudge them to the left a bit. Okay, so next we're going to do some little finishing touches here and there. We're going to apply some mist or some ice just coming off of the letters. So all we need to do is we're going to create a new layer on top of everything. And we're going to grab a nice big soft white brush. And we're just going to focus in on little areas like so and just touch with the brush like so. It's just going to make it stand out a little bit. Like so. Okay, that looks pretty good. Next what we're going to do is we're going to apply a light adjustment. So we're going to go to gradient map. We're going to have a nice gradient map coming all the way down. We're just going to change the colour of this slightly, almost date the image a bit. So we need to create a gradient map. So we're going to go to Layer, we're going to go to New Layer Adjustment, Gradient Map, click OK, and we're going to set this to the first color. Let's set that to 06 1731. Click on OK, and then the last color should be an orangey color, so we'll set that to F5 D9 A8. Click on OK, OK, click on OK. We're going to set the adjustment layer to darken. Okay, we just played around with the icy color down there, looks really good. And then we're going to set it to about 65. Like so. Okay, that looks good. And again, on this layer, we can create a little layer mask. We can use a black brush just to brush over the ice baby bits, so these bits look a little bit sharper. So make sure you've got that brush tool selected. And I just don't want the ice to be affected by that gradient overlay. So I'm just stroking over the letters, making sure that they stand out. And you want to get the ice baby bit as well. That way they just stand out a little bit from the background. Like so. Okay, so another final touch, we're going to apply the image. So we're going to go to Image, Apply the Image, and like I said before, click on OK. It's just applied everything that we've done earlier onto that layer, but I didn't want to do it onto that layer. So if I just create a new layer, and then go to Image, Apply, click on OK. If I turn off all the other layers, we're going to see this top layer that's going to show everything we've done so far. Once we've done it, we're going to go to Filter, Lighting Effects, so Render, Lighting Effects, and we're going to have the light coming up from the bottom, so I'm just going to drag that up a little bit more. Just going to bring it out, not too much. Make it a little bit fatter. And then just click on OK. And that just affects this bottom right bit, pushing the light up to the left. And that's pretty much it. That's the tutorial. So I hope you get a really good, nice effect from that. Don't forget to check out all of our other tutorials over at the website, psdtoots.com. This has been a great tutorial by Ben on how to create an ice cold poster with 3D text. I've been Gavin Steele. Thanks very much for following, and I hope to see what you do with that tutorial.